Breaking news, Julio Jones headed back to the NFC South. The former Falcons receiver is joining Tom Brady in Tampa. That's been confirmed by our Jonathan Jones. It's a one-year deal for the seven-time Pro Bowler who is now 33 years old, coming off a career-low season. Missed a bunch of games, caught just 31 passes and one touchdown. In fact, he's missed 7 games each of the last 2 seasons, averaging just about 4 catches and 63 receiving yards per game over the past 2 injury-riddled seasons. Before that, you could argue he was the best receiver in the NFL. All right, joining us now, Ryan Wilson, as Julio Jones signs a one-year deal with the Buccaneers. Does this move the needle for you, Ryan? He's not coming in to be a number 1 or a number 2. They've got Edwards and Godwin.
Yeah, not really, and basically for the reasons you laid out there, looking at his stats, 2019 was lights out, played 15 games, nearly 1,400 receiving yards in Atlanta. The last 2 years, he's played a total of 19 games with fewer than those combined 1,300 yards over those 2 years. Last year, of course, in Tennessee, didn't work out with A.J. Brown because of injuries, and you wonder how much he has left. You mentioned he's 33 years old. He'd be catching passes from a 45-year-old, which sounds funny to say out loud, but this team won the Super Bowl a few years ago. And I think what it does, in addition to Mike Evans, who we know is the number 1, it gives some depth behind Chris Godwin, who tore his ACL in December. We'll see when he's ready. He could be ready by the start of the season. Maybe they take their time and don't rush him back, and that's part of the reason for the Julio Jones signing. But after that, there's not a whole lot. You have Russell Gage. You have Jalen Darden, who they drafted a few years ago, later in the draft. You have Tyler Johnson, who played with Rashad Bateman in Minnesota, hasn't quite morphed into a number 3 or number 4 reliably. And I think that's perhaps the thinking there. And also, he weighs 220-ish pounds. Maybe he'll do some of the middle-of-the-field stuff that Gronkowski did in his prime, less so in recent years when he became more of a blocker. But I think it's just another piece of the puzzle. It wasn't like the Buccaneers weren't favored to win the division already. I think this gives them a little added firepower while they wait for Chris Godwin to get to full health. And you know, by any stretch of the imagination, the one-year deal, it makes a lot of sense for the Buccaneers and Julio Jones both.
Favorites to win the division and the NFC as of now. Ryan Wilson and Bryant McFadden with us here as Julio Jones signs a one-year deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or intends on signing him. Look, B-Mac, what do you think Julio Jones has left? We were kind of here last year talking about what could he bring the Tennessee Titans, and the answer was not much. What do you think for 22 in Tampa?
Well, I think this is a different situation for Julio. I think most importantly as an individual, if he is healthy. Ryan talked about the injuries that hampered some of his production last year in Tennessee. It's hard to provide numbers when you're not playing. And he did not play a lot, dealing with multiple injuries that, took him away from the football field. But in this situation, guys, if he is healthy, this could be a nice under-the-radar-like signing. Most importantly, because of who his quarterback is, Tom Brady. Great players can make other players look better than what they potentially are. And that is saying a lot, because Julio Jones is a Hall of Fame player, but we just haven't seen that production because it's been more injury-riddled than anything. But if he is healthy, and you talk about Julio being either the 3rd option or the 4th option when they're all healthy at the wide receiver position, this is a team, especially with the experience and the top-level play from Tom Brady, adding a guy like Julio, this could be a big-time under-the-radar signing based on if Julio Jones is healthy.
Yeah, if he's healthy, that's the big if. Missed 7 games last year, missed 7 games the year before that. Ryan, when he's been healthy these last 2 seasons, what has he been compared to what he was when he was maybe the best receiver in the game for 4 or 5 years?
I think the magic of Julio is that when he's on the field for the duration of the season. By that I mean he just wears teams down by his sheer physical size and speed and ability to catch the ball and yards after the catch. And in some ways, he's sort of the wide receiver version of Derrick Henry. So if you don't have him every week or 14 or 15 weeks of the year, that lessens his effectiveness because teams aren't having to try to tackle him 25, 30 times a game, it feel like. But I think B-Mac is on to something. This is a new phase of his career. He's no longer the number 1, and you're going to, best case scenario, not a very good division, Hall of Fame quarterback, arguably the best player in civilized football in Tom Brady, and you're going to a situation where you know you're going to win football games. So he's not going to be asked to catch 100 balls or even get 100 targets. And if he gets the 30 to 40 target range and catches 25 to 30 passes and 4 or 5 or 6 touchdowns, that feels like a slam dunk, great signing for the reasons that B-Mac alluded to. But I think the days are gone where we're seeing the Julio Jones sort of Derrick Henry his way up and down the field as a wide receiver. The physical toll has taken his toll, and I feel like he's at a different phase of his career where he's more, I don't want to say a possession receiver, but no longer the number one, probably closer to the number 2.5 or number 3 on this roster.
Yeah, and that's the unique part for Tampa. When they're healthy, at best, Julio may be the number 3 option, and they just gave Russell Gage some nice money, so maybe the number 4. But if you're telling me Julio Jones, when they're healthy, when Chris Godwin is back in the lineup, you got Mike Evans, you got Russell Gage, if he's coming into the lineup and he is your 4th best wide receiver, you have to like that. Not to mention the newfound motivation that Julio just received, knowing that he is going to Tampa. Instantly, he goes to a Super Bowl contender. Instantly, he's fired up about the expectations that he's walking into when he gets to that organization. So now the motivation is there. So we might not see the Julio that we saw in his prime years, but I can tell you this much. If he is healthy, we will see a better Julio than what we saw last year in Tennessee and what we saw the year before that while he was in Atlanta.
Bucs the favorites in the NFC, the second favorite to win it all, just behind the Buffalo Bills. B-Mac, are the Bucs in a better spot of luxury to maybe give Julio Jones maybe more time off, more plays off than, say, the Titans were last year and the Falcons were the years before to try to keep him healthier this season?
They're in a better spot, but when your leader is Tom Brady, who's pushing close to 50, then 40, and he's practicing every day and he's playing every day, if you see that, if you're Julio, I don't want it. If you want to give it to me, I'm not taking it because the GOAT is going every day. Granted, we play different positions, we go through different things physically, but he's going out and participating every practice, participating every snap, getting every rep, and playing in every ball game. So to answer your question, yes, they're better suited to do that. But if you're Julio, I mean, this is a guy you want to model your career after when it comes to accolades, when it comes to overall team success, and of course, individual praise as well. And if he's doing it every day, no question, I'm out there. I'm out there unless there's something that is hampering me, taking me away from the game, physically speaking, that I can't do it. But if I can go and they want to give me a rest day and 12 is not getting a rest day, I'm out. I'm out with the guys.
I hear you, B-Mac. On paper, it makes sense, but when you're 33 and it is hot out there at training camp, you know about this, and you're running 100 yards routes and you got to come back, and he might want to take a break down then. And I think Tom Brady might be okay with it because Tom Brady, for all the showing up he does, he ain't running a lot of sprints during the middle of practice. But to your point, I think the mindset is such that Tom Brady's not going to put up with a lot of foolishness, and Julio Jones will probably be eager to follow that, seeing that he doesn't have a Super Bowl. I mean, he was incredibly close against that Tom Brady team back in the day when it was Falcons and Patriots, but this is a different animal, and he might be motivated, to your point, more so than maybe he was last year. Last year, though, we knew that the Titans were a good football team. They won 12 games and were the number 1 seed in the AFC. But Ryan Tannehill, for as good as he's been in Tennessee, is not Tom Brady. And I think that's the real concern, probably the thinking that went through Julio Jones' head when he decided where to sign right here. The other good news is you play in a division where Jameis Winston's coming back from ACL, even though he played well before the injury. There are a lot of question marks in New Orleans, and there are a ton of questions in both Atlanta and Carolina up and down the roster. So you are perfectly positioned to have an almost automatic bid to the playoffs. And then once you get there, if you can make it to January and stay healthy as Julio Jones, you really have a chance to contribute and put the cherry on top of your legacy, if you will, with a deep run into the playoffs and maybe even the Super Bowl again.
All right, Ryan Wilson and Bryant McFadden with us here on HQ as our Jonathan Jones confirms that Julio Jones is signing a 1-year deal with the Bucs, and he will try to catch passes from Tom Brady. 12 years older than Julio Jones Yet Tom Brady in a better position right now physically than Julio Jones because of the position he plays. B-Mac on the very latest All Things Covered. Interesting episode, entertaining, with Najee Harris on his workload for the upcoming season. That Steelers quarterback competition, Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, and rumors about his weight as well. It's a good one. Check it out. It just dropped yesterday. All Things Covered with B-Mac and Patrick Peterson.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.